How come adults don't exist in 2005? I don't understand how these children are dying literally almost every week in Tokyo Revengers, and there is no adults present. Where are the adults? In the safest country in the world. I don't understand. So let's talk about action and how Tokyo Revengers isn't that. Today I'm going to be breaking down the more drama-filled emotional parts of the show and how it is portrayed and what makes it different from most action battle series that we're used to seeing in a lot of other shonen type anime. But before we do that, make sure you grab your cup and take a sip because it's time to spill the anime tea. Most of the conflicts in an action are solved through battles, as well as usually started through a battle. Someone's fighting each other, someone has to fight, some kind of battle or war or royale has to take place. A tournament arc usually has to go down. There's some kind of physical altercation that has to take place in a battle action show. Even though in Tokyo Revengers there are a lot of battles in the show that make up a majority of the main content, we don't really care about who is winning or losing these battles because that's not the biggest stake in the show. The biggest stake in the show is finding out and determining who will die and why they will die and trying to prevent them from dying. Also, usually in anime like this, especially in the past, there used to be characters or main characters who were super macho, like the epitome of machoism and manlyhood, and they used to be super buff and strong and could take anyone out. Think of characters in shows like from Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, as well as Yu Hakusho, where the characters were always battling someone, taking on someone, ready for a fight, and would usually win. Which all has to do with the process and the concept of escapism. People not being that strong in real life can escape into these characters who are that strong and kind of feel like they are them vicariously through what they watch. Whereas nowadays, there are a lot more relatable, real-life, realistic characters who cannot fight, who just are kind of thrown into these situations. They're taking the soft boys, the soft heroes of today, and throwing them into this gang-related situation in Tokyo Revengers, which gives us our number one crybaby, Takamichi, who, if your OP, if your main theme song when you walked in the room was Crybaby, if that was your OP, you'd be a little soft too, okay? And at least we are given other characters who are really strong to kind of combat this. We were given Dragon Mikey and the other members in the Tokyo Manji gang, as well as in the other gangs that were shown throughout the show. But I'm here to talk about drama, so let's do that. But before we do, make sure you take a sip of tea if you need it, because I have been talking a lot today. Also, make sure you like this video if you're enjoying it so far. I like making videos breaking down popular anime series and telling you what they actually are instead of what everyone wants you to believe they are. And of course, feel free to disagree or agree with me in the comments. I want to know what you guys think of Tokyo Revengers as well. Let's explain some drama series and how Tokyo Revengers is inspired by many different kinds of dramas that exist. As I explained earlier, often the end result of Tokyo Revengers is not whether a person wins or loses, it's if the person can be persuaded to change their mind, or if a character's death can be prevented, which is like a huge jump, like going from like talking to a person to make sure that they don't make this decision to making sure someone does not physically get murdered. But why is there such an extreme jump from the way that conflicts are solved in Tokyo Revengers? Well, I would explain that to be because of the influence and possible reference to Yakuza films that Tokyo Revengers may rely on. Yakuza films are really popular drama action movies that exist in Japan. They usually feature a delinquent or a Yakuza or a Yankee that have to choose between good or bad and duty, or like what they're owed to for a certain like organization or to a certain person or people or a group versus their personal feelings on certain subjects and concepts and things like that, and how they kind of conflict, which I feel like Tokyo Revengers talks about a lot. Like a lot of the characters kind of have this trope of duty versus personal feelings. The reason I bring these up is because these movies focus heavily on the main characters and their personal and inner turmoil and conflicts and their like personal connections and possible pitfalls between characters in the show or in their movies, which is something that Tokyo Revengers also does. Now moving on to more just generic dramas, just dramas in general, talking about animated dramas, anime dramas, J-dramas, K-dramas, all these different types of dramas that exist and are really popular in Japan and in Korea and in East Asian culture. There are two main things that every drama has and kind of has to have in order to be a drama, and that any person who watches any kind of drama would recognize automatically. The first being that there's character-driven stories. These are different than like shonen character-driven stories, because in shonen, we're kind of just along for the journey, and then whatever journey these people are going through, we're going through that. But in dramas, these people already have serious backstories. They've been through a lot already, and we're kind of seeing how their past selves and their past lives correlate to what they are now doing. And we kind of see that a little bit in Takemichi. He had a very like basic life, except for that one point in his life. And then for him to go back with the knowledge that he has now about everything that's happening in the future, about the people being killed and like people going after him and these gangs that are forming that are way bigger than they were when he was a kid, it still plays into that factor of these characters. We're really involved in these characters' stories and backstories, and learning what makes them commit what the actions that they commit, instead of being just dragged along the story like we are in a lot of other shonen action shows. And the second most important thing that every drama must have is a really crazy, ridiculous cliffhanger. Like, we all saw Squid Games. We know about ridiculous cliffhangers. Like, we understand. And if you've seen the end of the first season of Tokyo Revengers, then you know how ridiculous of a cliffhanger that was. Like, literally a crime. It literally should be a crime for that kind of cliffhanger to just leave us there without even a hint of another season. That should be illegal. The main point of dramas is to expect the unexpected, because anything can happen. Some main examples that you can point out in any drama and that you can point out for Tokyo Revengers alone include, someone is always dying. There's always someone on the verge of death. There's someone about to get killed. There's someone who's going to kill someone. There's someone who secretly hates someone. There's someone plotting some type of revenge on someone. There's always a romance element, a loved one getting hurt or, seriously injured or dying. Most importantly, the main character is going to get hurt mentally, physically, and in some kind of irreparable way that will really highlight the series. And in the case of Tokyo Revengers specifically, there's always someone who is going to die. There's always a character who might die that needs to be prevented from dying. There's characters in the past and the present, like anyone can get this death train. It's coming for anybody. But it's great because it's something that keeps our interest in the stories, because we, through the perspective of Takemichi, are understanding and getting to know each of these characters that are in the gang and what's kind of leading them to the decisions that they're making in the past and present. So the more of the connection we build with them, the more of a connection Takemichi builds with them, the closer we feel to them, the harder it is to see whatever happens or doesn't happen to them, or to really harp on Takemichi saving these characters, which again can be a little frustrating when he can't even take a punch, let alone hit anyone. I'm gonna talk about character types and how certain characters in Tokyo Revengers and their backstories align with drama character tropes in other series as well. I want to start off with Kazutora, because he is a newer character that we were just introduced to in the last arc of the first season of Tokyo Revengers, but he had the most drama-filled backstory ever. But Kazutora committed a horrendous crime, a really terrible crime, and then convinced himself that it was somebody else's fault because he was doing it for that person, even though it was his decision to go off and do the thing that he wanted to do in the first place. He convinced himself that this person was bad and that he needed to kill him, and just, completely mess up his entire life. There's always a character who has a psychological breakdown because of something that they did that caused bad things to happen. And then, of course, we have Baji, our double-sided traitor who has good intentions. He pushes everyone away because he doesn't want anyone else to get hurt. He wants to be the sole person who takes care of what he needs to take care of, even though it's debatable if that worked out for him at all. I won't give anything away. We always have to have a character who we think is on the side of bad, but is actually a decent person who just doesn't want other people to get hurt and really is looking out for his friends and doing the absolute most. Dragon is a caring but defensive older brother type character who looks like he is 35 even though he is only 15. He's a great character because even though he grew up literally in a brothel, he's an orphan who grew up in a brothel, he is the most logical and emotionally mature character in the entire show. That always has to be a really good character who the audience really loves in a drama, that is probably going to break your heart in some way, whether that be that they don't make it to a certain part in the story, whether that be they get hurt in some type of way. Just whatever happens to that character, you are very emotionally invested in them because they are such a good, well-rounded person. Then there's Mikey, of course, who is our eggshell. Like, he is very hard to crack, but there are moments where we can see when he gets really vulnerable. And honestly, I believe that when we get to like what really is going on in Mikey's mind and like what's really happening with his character and the connections that he has with the other characters, with the possible connection he has to Kisaki and all that, we're going to find out the reason why all of this is even taking place, why Takemichi can go in the past, and why he needs to try to save everyone. Again, a aloof character who doesn't have, that we don't have a lot of information about, are also popular. They're usually actually the villain characters in a lot of dramas, I feel like. And we do have a villain character like that. In Tokyo Revengers, we have Kisaki, which we still do not know a lot about. We're probably going to find out more next season. But Mikey is interesting because he seems to be on the side of good, turned evil. So we're seeing his process of like why he turned evil is going to be a wild trip for sure. And of course there's Takemichi, which is mostly just our gateway to these characters, getting to know and understand and connect with each of these characters and their inner turmoils, their struggles within their groups, and why they do the things that they do. The creator of Tokyo Revengers, Ken Wakui, said he was inspired from his own personal past when writing Tokyo Revengers, alongside, of course, ReZero and Erased and other series that talk about the supernatural and going back in time. Just a little tidbit of information about the creator is really important to in realizing why this is more of a drama rather than an action series. When you are knee-deep in a gang, you know all of the... I'm not saying that I've ever been in a gang ever. Like, look at me. I would never. I'm so weak. I am Takemichi. I'm going to assume, probably terribly, that when you're knee-deep in a gang, there are so many little intricate things that exist. So many relationships that are strained and kind of messed up because of certain things that happen, probably from deaths and violence and whatever else went on. I understand why this is more of a drama and why he focuses more on the characters and their inner relationships within their groups, within the other groups, within rival groups, and like the intricacies of this whole gang culture that exists in Japan, which is really interesting to see. Overall, hardcore manga fans are a little upset about the Tokyo Revengers anime because it just doesn't, literally hit the same as the manga. The grittiness of the battles and the events are just not quite the same. But people who are going in blind like me and are just kind of like anime only watchers and fans are really enjoying the story because the story is what is keeping the audience like afloat. Like, it is giving us lots of drama and intrigue and hoping that our characters are going to survive at the end. Our favorite characters are going to survive in the present. Whether it's hardcore Yakuza drama or the next battle action shonen, make sure to remember that you shouldn't judge a book, manga, or anime by its key visual art. It might just surprise you how much a drama, romance, mystery type anime can hold its own against more action and battle heavy shows, and maybe even provide a better story than any of these battle action shows that it is competing with. And of course, while you're waiting for season 2, make sure you watch more of my videos, specifically this one, where I talk more about anime and break it down. Thank you so much for watching the Anime Tea. My name is Phoenix. I had a great time and I hope you did too. I will see you in the next video. Have a good one. Peace.